All right, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about this Knights MRE rail carbine, kind of the history behind its configuration, and why I think this is just a very interesting, kind of pioneering, groundbreaking kind of carbine. It has a lot of features on it that 15 years ago were very, very new, but today are kind of commonplace. We can kind of see some modern advancements in this rifle. So we'll discuss it, kind of a muzzle device all the way back. I'll kind of ramble as we go. So the first thing we got here is the Knights flash hider. This is compatible with the NT4 suppressor. So just like the suppressor, it's perfectly adequate at flash hiding, like the suppressor is perfectly adequate at suppressing sound. Both of them, though, kind of stand out for being very, very robust, right? And this is actually a relatively affordable piece of equipment from Knights Armament. The barrel is a Colt SOCOM M4A1 profile barrel. This barrel is actually very, very accurate. I've gotten just about 1-minute groups with this barrel and this rifle using Mark 262, right? So Black Hills 77 grain ammunition, which is a precision round. Well, note, this is a free float handguard. A little bit better optic. So what is really holding back a typical M4A1 from putting a 1-inch group? Ammunition, and then interference from the handguard, and of course, like the shooter's ability to actually hold a minute. Okay. The handguard, right? It's kind of like the centerpiece of what makes this rifle so interesting. So this is the Knights MRE free float rail system. So MRE stands for more real estate, or I think modular rail extension. That's kind of like the official name for it. Basically, it was the first mass-produced carbine to kind of push past the front sight gas block and give you what we now expect to be like a standard handguard length, not just the 7 inches you get on a standard M4. These are pretty interesting for a few reasons. One of which is that the handguard actually can be mounted either this end up or on the bottom. That gives you a different height rail for changing how high your PEC 2 is mounted or for how low your bipod's mounted. It's pretty neat there. This piece on the end, or the actual kind of slip-in extension, can be removed, so you can cut some weight there if you wanted to. And its assembly is really kind of interesting. We'll talk about that as soon as we get that cover off. So we can see these holes here, right? Those exist because you need to take off the front sight base, install the handguard with the barrel, and then put the front sight base on and punch those pins through those holes. So kind of a not very armor-friendly design, kind of crazy by today's standards. But again, this thing is 15 years old. In a few years, right, there will be privates who are younger than this handguard. Let's put that in perspective. A lot of guys from Knights kind of bemoan the fact that they rarely see anybody put anything out here, right? It's like, why do we make this long rail and no one puts anything on the end? I guess I'm one of those guys, right? But this would be great, especially to get a light a little bit further out there, a bipod on the end, and you could probably fit, a modern PEC, right, on the end here. It's just the old issued PEC 2, right? It's just too big for that. Speaking of the PEC 2, we have that up top here. We kind of see just how chonky the PEC 2 is, right? It's like very, very high on the rail. I know Knights made a different kind of like interface piece here to kind of get it lower. I've been able to find one of those, like that's fine, I'll survive. So part of the kind of interesting feature about why this matters as far as height is that kind of drives running wiring down to this grip. So this is commonly called like a gangster grip after the old Tommy gun grips. We've seen some of these mass produced. I know Larry Vickers sold one that was made by Knights, but I think most of these were made in-house. This is definitely kind of a product of its time. It's a way to integrate light laser control into one interface, which even today we're doing, right? We're running our maul and our Surefire to one pressure pad. We got the Unity hot button. We got all kinds of things that this, very ungainly looking item is trying to achieve the same thing. So those wires would just come down off the pec, maybe even off the light, and you'd have 2 buttons here that you could press to activate one or the other. You could turn them off, etc. So pretty neat there. Fairly simple piece to fabricate. I got the old Surefire in here. I put some 100 mile an hour tape on the end of this blue filter. That kind of keeps me from having a white light ND. So I'll just press the back of it with my thumb for momentary. Then I can just screw it all the way in for constant on. Is it the best setup ever? No. But at a time when people have been hose clamping mag lights, this was a big deal. Only 60 lumens, right? Again, 15 years ago, 60 lumens was pretty good. Now, very underwhelming. As far as ergonomics, if you hold it like this, not the best. But you can see in the video I put up yesterday, me actually using this rifle in a competition. Grab it just like so, like it's a hand stop. It's not really a big deal. Your thumb can kind of ride on top of the rail there. No, I've never actually come over grabbed the front sight base, so totally doable. And then come back if I want to do some momentary stuff here. Could I cut it? Maybe that's how I'm going to grab it, probably. But I think I'll just leave it at it as is. So that's kind of really the front end, right? Handguard, gangster grip, PEC 2. That's really kind of critical if you want to have this kind of clone per se. Tying into the PEC again, right? The height of the PEC. That's where this 193 mount comes from. So all the benefits of higher mounted optics, right? Higher than 154. Those are all true, right? Heads up use, less neck strain, use with NVGs, Pro Mass, all that kind of stuff. It's all true. But the real genesis of this height, this 193, is right here. All right, so to get that Schmidt & Bender short dot over the PEC. If you had a 154 height scope ring, you simply could not put the optic on the gun, right? It's competing for space with the PEC. So LaRue came through with this setup. This is still a very usable scope mount, right? It's quick release. When we get to the left side of the gun, we'll show that. But I've had no issues with any form of zero retention, anything like that. LaRue scope mounts, they're not the latest thing. They're not a new Badger or whatever, but they work, right? There are sniper rifles in armories right now with LaRue QD mounts on them. So what does that say? All right, this scope is it's really cool to me because it's kind of like the first commonly used LPVO in high-end units, as far as I can tell. Were there other ones? Yeah, but I think this one kind of saw more widespread use than those. And it still kind of punches and hangs in there with the new optics. So it's only 1.4, right? That's the low end. It's a 4-power. But the 1.1 is not that bad. I think a lot of optics are being a little generous in claiming to be true 1X, whereas the Germans here were just telling it like it is, right? It's not exactly 1X, it's 1.1. Shooting at close distances, I have not found that to be very detrimental. If you were to go from, say, this optic to a razor and back, you definitely would notice it going back. But it's not like I look through this on 1.1 and feel like I'm looking through something ridiculous. There's a lot of blue tint, right? If you're playing Vasily Zaitsev, right, and blasting your entire neighborhood, you're going to notice the blue tint. But in use, it's completely irrelevant, just like on an RMR, right? You don't notice the blue tint when you're actually shooting the rifle or pistol for that matter. The brightness on this goes all the way up to 11, and it is very, very, very bright on its max setting. So great job, Schmidt and Bender. Trijicon, fix your VCOG, make it as bright as this 15-year-old optic. Another neat thing is that they have off settings between each brightness setting, and they have night vision compatible illumination. Well ahead of its time with excellent glass quality. So very, very happy with this 15-year-old optic. Some other features about it, they're kind of antiquated but interesting. There's no cattail, right? You just got to kind of dial it, but it's very smooth to adjust the magnification. It's not as stiff as a Razor 1-6, so noted. And then the reticle is mill-hash crosshairs, which are good, right? They're a little bit thick for my taste, but they're not bad. However, the adjustments are in minutes of angle. Also, on the top, right on my elevation, the MOA clicks above them have a corresponding 100-meter mark for 5.56, right? So you kind of have a BDC built in to your scope ring, or elevation adjustment. Kind of neat, right, that they did that, but it's an LPVO, it only goes to 4 power. Like, I don't really see the utility necessarily in dialing dope with this optic, especially because the clicks are in minutes and the reticle is in mils. So that's like a big no-go. I think it's more commonly understood these days that that's not what you want. But at the time, my best guesstimate or understanding is that people wanted you to shoot the gun, walk down range, measure your group distance from point of aim, and then the thought process was that it was very, very easy then to convert that to minutes of angle. So say my group was 2.5 inches left, well, with half-minute clicks, that's make five clicks, right? Inches to inches, as opposed to mils, inches, that kind of like conversion. Now we understand that I can just measure the distance of the group with the reticle and then make the clicks without ever walking down range. So good idea, right? Like they had a good thought process, but in reality, you want mil optic, reticle, and turret, right? That's kind of like all there is to that. But still a very good scope. Is it better than a Razor 1-6? No, not really. Is it better than X-Actor? No. But if I could get one of these for like $400, $500, I would buy one. I'd put it on everything. Coming down, all the internals on this gun, bolt carrier, all that stuff is just boring, standard Colt, right? The trigger is the Knight's 2-stage, right? So this is a trigger that, the full auto version was an issue trigger, and I've never really had a problem with it. I like the trigger. It's kind of like a mil-spec plus trigger. Very smooth, it's 2-stage, but it's not as light as a Geisley SSAE or something like that. Speaking of Geisley, we got Geisley Super 42, buffer and spring, right? Oh no, it's not clone correct anymore, but it makes the gun just function better. On the back end, Colt N1 stock with the John Mazin pad. You absolutely need this black zip tie to keep your butt pad from falling off. This doesn't provide any recoil mitigation, right? That's not the point of the rubber butt pad on a rifle. The point here is to give you a little more traction, right, on the stock, to keep it from slipping out of your shoulder. It also gives you a little more length of pull if you like having a little bit longer stock. If you're going, say, a high ready, if you're a high ready kind of guy, you might want to just go one click in to compensate for the friction and a little extra length. But as someone who just doesn't really do that, I tend to keep it all the way out. Our sling is the VTAC sling, right? This has really stood the test of time. It's an excellent 2-point adjustable. Having the free running tail, all right, which is kind of bound up right now, but the free running tail, this lets you really rapidly adjust this sling. So in the video, me shooting the match, you can see me in one stage going from pistol to rifle. So I start with this on my back. It was very, very easy for me to just loosen the sling and pull this up front. All right, so this sling, the VTAC, really, it works, right? It's a good sling, and that's all there is to it. Dope card on the buttstock, right? I always do that, nothing special there. Is that like super duper clone correct? I don't know, whatever. Pistol grip, this is the Lone Star grip. It's a very similar profile to an A2 grip, right? It has that little finger notch that people either love or hate. I can live with it, it's okay. But what's cool about this grip is that it does have a compartment right in the bottom. So this is a thing that on modern rifles we take for granted, but 15 years ago, there was no BCM grip, there was no Magpul grip, right? You had A2 grip, and there was no way to put anything, in the pistol grip. As someone who really likes having, extra Allen or torque wrenches, in my pistol grip, extra batteries for my optic in there, and that's a big deal, and that's kind of part of why I like this as a clone gun per se, because I can still do modern gun things with it. I'm not hampered by having a antiquated musket. 4 on the handguard, I got 2 different QD points, so I can move my sling as needed. And again, back to that match footage, you can see I absolutely do adjust where my sling is mounted on the handguard. Is that clone correct? I don't know, but it's my rifle, and I need it to also work for me, as well as being the coolest gun you could get in 2005. So, closing thoughts. This is not a replacement, like a good HK416 or Knight's gun or Hodge gun, right? Like, is this better than those guns? No, of course not. But it 100% is a capable carbine that can hang in there. Last note before I forget, 30-round mag, right? Original GI magazine, right? Sorry, I forgot about this, whatever. This is still lighter and smaller than a PMag. So what does that mean? If you're doing all this like low vis stuff that like seems to be like very trendy, maybe you want a magazine that's not as bulky as a PMag. Just a thought. Right? I have not had one of these be a problem for me because I just maintain the mag. If it breaks, I throw it away. Okay. Real closing thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. Hit me up in the comment section. I'm sure I forgot something, in my little diatribe about this rifle. So fill me in if I'm missing anything. Let me know what I should have hit up, and maybe I'll make a part 2 if there's enough. Thanks.